myself will share a microphone for the questions and for the answering. We will do the same thing, a 1 minute opening and closing statements. Again, the order is by lot. We do have, let me explain if I can and not confuse you any more than I am on this subject. But 2 of the candidates are running for a 2-year position. That's to fill out a term for Cal Davis, who was on the board and now is running for a 4-year position, one of the 4-year positions that's open. So there are 6 people then running for 3 open 4-year positions, correct? Other than my signs saying 6 people are running for 1 opening. But that's really great that you have that much interest in River Forest and people coming on the board. I remember a time when we did forums here that there was maybe 1 extra person, or we didn't do a forum at all because it was uncontested. So I applaud you all for stepping forward, because that is needed to keep everything transparent in a community. So we're going to start off with, and if you ever want me to repeat a question, because with the number that we have here, it may get lost by the time the 7th person is answering, just ask and I will do that. I will wrestle a microphone away from somebody so that I can say the question again. So we're going to start off with Steve giving opening statement.
Hi, I'm Steve Lefko. When Kim and I moved to Chicagoland, we looked all over for a place to live, and River Forest really lit up as a premier opportunity for public education, and absolutely that's what we've experienced at District 90. I started getting involved in participating in school board meetings through my work connecting the village and the district around child safety. And it was at those meetings where I started to hear the question of closing, the challenge of closing the achievement gap brought up. And that was of great interest to me. I like the conversations and value the discussion about diversity and inclusivity and equity, but it was the topic of curriculum that really grabbed my attention. And so I think with a small town like River Forest, what we can do to close the achievement gap is to raise the bottom without creating a ceiling so that all of our kids can soar. I think this is a value of River Forest. I ask a lot of questions. I'm a PhD scientist. I work to gain understanding. And I'm pretty good at it too. I think that there's a few things that we need to tackle in River Forest as well. That's creating opportunities for more kids to show up kindergarten ready. I think we need to double down on our attention to the social and emotional health of kids. I also think we need a 5-year strategic plan that really telegraphs our mission and our principles to the community. And I think if you look back at my commitment to the community, how I've served the community through various roles, I'm a qualified candidate to do this, and I'll serve your community very well.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and the River Forest Civic Association for organizing tonight, and for all of you for attending. My name is Katie Avalos, and I'm running for the 2-year term. I was endorsed by the D90 Community Caucus in the Wednesday Journal as the most qualified candidate for this position. I am excited about what is happening in our schools and want to participate in a more meaningful way as we look to educate our kids for their future rather than our past. We have great schools that draw people to our community, but if we do not evolve and change with the times, then other communities and schools will pass us by. My priorities are continuing fiscal responsibility, modernizing education through rigorous curriculum, enhancing communication through technology, focusing on social and emotional learning. I have the experience needed to do the job. For the past 4 years, I've been the PTO board liaison and have attended board meetings on a regular basis. I bring a new perspective. I am the mother of 3 kids with very different academic needs, which means I understand the experiences of a variety of students and the families that support them. I have volunteered in our schools and I work in our community. I work for the Community Congregations, which is a local nonprofit that strives to open communication across boundaries of faith. I am committed to meeting each child where they are and challenging them to grow as students and individuals. I hope you will vote for me on April 2nd.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Allison Jack. I am the mother of 4 boys. The oldest is 10 and the youngest is 5. I've worked in education my entire career. After teaching for 7 years, I worked for both municipal and state government with Elliott. And also I have worked for 3 nonprofit organizations. In all of these roles, I have worked to ensure that more children have had access to a great education, the kind of education that our children in D90 receive. But I think that we could go from great to excellent, and that's why I'm running for the school board. I think that I have the experience, I have the national perspective, and I have the connections around the country to really look at the problems with a new lens. I think in a well-resourced school district like D90, we need to make sure we have the curriculum, the programs, and the policies in place that every child is able to reach their full potential. I want to use everything I've learned over the past 28 years to make sure that we are making sure we know the things that are working, and then when we identify challenges, we're really doing that in a way that is taking in all possibilities. I'm very excited about this opportunity, and thanks for being here tonight.
Hi, my name is Matt Heffner. I moved to River Forest a few years ago with my wife Carla and our 2 kids. I have a 5th grader and a 3rd grader. He's at Lincoln. I am a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for the last 20 years. I've run my own law firm for the last 12. I'm getting older than I thought. And I think I have unique skills that I can bring to the board that it will lack going into next year. As of now, we are going to lose our only board member who has any legal training, and I think that's important for any governing body to have that kind of a skill. And I'm running because I love River Forest, and I think I can help make the schools better. Thank you.
Thank you all. Hi. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and the River Forest Civic Association for this evening. Chris and Dan, thank you very much. Thank you to my lovely wife, and please take a I Heart D90 mug on the way out. She was voted most school-spirited here at Roosevelt when she graduated a few years ago. My name is Rich Moore, and I'm volunteering for another 4 years of service because I love District 90. It's a tremendous honor to serve you in my community in this capacity. I grew up in Oak Park, and I have lived in River Forest for the past 16 years. We have 3 kids, a sophomore at OPRF, a 7th grader at Roosevelt, and a 3rd grader at Lincoln. I volunteered on our amazing PTOs, thank you PTO people who are out there, and I've coached soccer for our awesome kids for the past decade. I'm a lifelong educator in public education with 25 years of experience, teaching all levels of social science, and as an assistant principal for curriculum and instruction. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Hui Kang. My family and I moved to River Forest back in 2016. We have twin boys, 1st graders at Lincoln. I've spent the last 20 years or so working in technology. I think technology is one of those topics that will continue to become a more important topic in our lives, our kids' lives, and then in the future of education. I think that we can leverage technology to engage all the people that are in this neighborhood, in this community, for their ideas, so that we can ask good questions and we can understand the concerns of our community. And I think my experience in technology will allow to help guide that conversation to make a good decision so that more folks can contribute and be involved. So I think District 90, River Forest is a great community, and my wife and I can't be happier being a part of it. And I look forward to volunteering and contributing as much as I can. Thanks.
My name is Barb Mcgee, and my husband Rich and I are 30-year residents of River Forest and have put 5 wonderful adult employed situated children through District 90. I am unique in the field of candidates because I am the only one who does not presently have children in the schools. And I also feel that I have long-term perspective to offer, and that I can represent the 78% of village residents who do not have children in the schools. That is an important voice, and we need to hear it. The schools belong to everyone, and it's a priority of mine to hold the line on costs so that people like our family who moved here with small children, put them all through school, fell in love with this community and want to stay, will be able to do that. So fiscal responsibility is a major priority of mine, but I also love children. It took 13 years for me to graduate from Lincoln School. And I love the schools and I love the community and would love to serve again for an additional 4 years.
Thank you. And just to say that Cal Davis was not able to come tonight because he had a family event. So you'll notice his name is down there, but he is also running for one of the 4-year terms. Okay, we're going to start with the first question going to Kathleen, and I'll give you the microphone as soon as I ask the question. Again, look at our person in the front there with the paddles so you know how much time you have. Many families move to River Forest for the quality services and attention given to children with special needs in our schools. What plans for this population do you have as a board member?
So my oldest son, who's in 7th grade, Manolo, has learning disabilities and receives special education services. So I'm very familiar with what's going well in River Forest and where we can be better. Right now, Easter Seals is currently doing an evaluation of programs that are offered at both Roosevelt and Willard this week, interviewing parents, observing classrooms, and they will give a comprehensive report back. One of the things that I really have pushed for my child is to be in a more inclusive environment. The district is moving towards co-teaching, and it's something that my husband and I pushed a lot when my son came to Roosevelt. And I think we need to continue to work to have high standards and help kids achieve similarly to other kids, and not have a situation where someone is off in a corner working on a different activity, because unfortunately you would be surprised that that does still happen in River Forest at times. So it is a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and I believe I am the only person on this panel who currently has a child with an IEP.
Actually, yes. One of my boys has an IEP for speech. And I feel really lucky because he started getting services when he was 3 years old, and that was because I was an advocate for him, and I took him in, and the school district was very open, and they're still giving him services, and it's great. But a lot of parents who don't know that, who live in the district, are not accessing that. And I understand the Early Childhood Collaborative, which is something that's based in Oak Park that D90 could have a choice to be part of, does a lot of early screenings and can really help to make sure that kids who have special needs are diagnosed early, because we know that the best outcomes are when kids get the supports as early as they can. I am not an expert on the preschool program at Willard, but one thing I have heard in my door knocking and meeting people through this campaign, which has been great, is there's a lot of misunderstanding about how that program works and what you have to be eligible to get into that program. So I would really work to make sure that was more transparent and there was more community understanding of that opportunity for students with special needs.
With respect to the specific question about what particular programs within District 90 for kids with special needs, I can't say that I have any off the top of my head. I agree with Allison about the Early Childhood Collaborative. I think we in D90 should be invested in that. We should have early childhood screening, and we should use every resource possible on that front. With respect to the issues within our schools, I'm fully committed to listening to the parents of the kids who have special needs, hear what they want to see happen with their kids, and work with them to provide everything they need.
So as the assistant principal for curriculum instruction for over 10 years, I worked very closely with our special ed department at the high school level, and I was the LEA, the local education agent, the administrator in charge of countless IEP meetings, and also Section 504 meetings, and I know that each one of those were unique, and each child is unique, come to us with different needs, yet we have high standards for all of our students. Here in District 90, we talk about our fiscal responsibility. At a couple of board meetings ago, I'm sure you were there, we discussed the need for bringing in the partnership of Easter Seals at a cost. And so we decided unanimously that this was something that we valued. And so we did bring in Easter seals. We also have our inclusive preschool model, where we do identify students early and provide services even before kindergarten. And so there are amazing things happening in District 90 today. I could go on, but I'm being told to stop.
So I have twins with very, very different needs and challenges, and one of them actually has an IEP. And my personal experiences with District 90 and the kindergarten has been really good. I think there's a lot of things that the district does well. You know, I feel like the team he has at Lincoln is very supportive of him, is willing to listen to him, give him the opportunities to participate. I do agree with you that there is a bit of a lack of transparency in the communication about how do you engage the appropriate services, how do you make sure that people don't need to sort of look under every rock to understand the information that's available. And I do think that one of the opportunities that I'd like District 90 to do more of is to provide more social type supports for my child. I think they do a really nice job academically. I do think that, you know, there is some opportunities where some of the social learning that he needs is probably not being addressed at school as well.
I think the district values the experience of each child and always has, and that is one of our particular strengths. And I think that it is also true of our outreach to children with special needs. Each is an individual journey, and we do our best. We have outstanding administrators in charge of our special ed. We have a new one who is doing a wonderful job. I think that they are very, very important members of the school community, and we do the best we can. I think we do placement and outreach from the time children are 3 years old. I believe there is screening available. It may be that connecting parents with that is something that we can do better. We're always looking to communicate better for all of our different student populations. I know many people move to the community because our outstanding work with children with special needs is widely recognized.
Yeah, so soon after moving here, some of the first friends that my daughter made were children that had special needs, and the feedback that we got in dinners with friends was this was a destination for these families, and that gave a real sense of pride because we're a small community, and the fact that we could see everybody for their unique needs, that was reassuring for us. We're all different learners, and I think some of the changes the district's making now, just in the way they operate with transparency and communication, it's always about people, and it's always about connecting with families. And I think we're seeing more and more of that, which is absolutely fantastic. As far as a specific opportunity, I think, you know, all the data says that the sooner you detect needs and the sooner you work with those children, the higher the achievement that you can have. So I'm a huge fan of reaching upstream and working with families to provide universal screening, access to supports, so that these kids can show up pre-kindergarten or kindergarten ready. I think you know, that'd be a top priority for me.
Thank you. Carol, you're going to start this next question, and some of you did mention the kindergarten program. Is full-day kindergarten a priority for you? And if it is, what would be some of the first steps towards moving? What would be some of the first steps in moving towards it?
So thank you. I just want to clarify, my name is Carol Allison Jack. I go by my middle name, so it's going to be complicated on the ballot. Carol Allison, just remember. So I am a huge advocate for full-day kindergarten. I pushed really hard with a group of 90 parents in 2015 to ask the district to explore offering a full-day kindergarten option, and we were shut down, which is one of the reasons why I decided to run for the school board. There are many other issues, but I feel like full-day kindergarten is a central one if we're talking about equity, because all children in our district are not coming from the same high-quality preschools. They have different challenges at home, and if we are trying to truly level the playing field, we have to make sure that kindergarten is a great experience and that it's not rushed, and it's not 2 hours and 50 minutes, and it leaves kids loving school. For my oldest, he had a really tough time in 2 hours and 50 minutes because the curriculum just went way too fast. And so I think it really is an issue. The question was, what would you do first? I think we have to explore space. We understand that that's the huge barrier. And so what are the options, and really think creatively about space in the community. And I think the first thing we need to do is make sure that the kids who need it are getting it, and then we can offer it to the broader community.
Yes, full-day kindergarten is a priority for me. I think it's ridiculous in this day and age that we don't have it. I'd like to clarify, though, that one of the things that when I think about full-day kindergarten, I think about it as an option. So it would not be a requirement. It would be an option for parents to send their kids to full-day kindergarten. And if it becomes a cost issue for us, we can make it so that the parents have to pay for that extra half day. I think a lot of parents would appreciate that. They'd rather get their kids into the District 90 system sooner rather than later. And so we can do this on a revenue neutral proposition. What we have to do is we have to be creative about finding space. If you were here earlier and you heard the Park District people, they were actually talking about perhaps building a new facility, and one of the candidates suggested that it could be used for preschool or pre-K or kindergarten. Those are the types of discussions that we need to have. We need to have them with the Park District. We need to have them with the village. We need to reach out to the village and see if they can help us get the space. And I think we can solve it if we make it a priority and if the board has the will to do it.
And so, I'm in instructional technology now. And so, if you look on our website, you would see that in 2015, the board did a full review of the literature and the cost of full-day kindergarten, and I know that a previous board did the same. And so, if it is a priority, it comes at a cost to the Board of Education. And if you look at the PowerPoint that is the presentation from 2015, you'll see numbers from 2015. And so the numbers for the actual construction to house full-day kindergarten in our schools, which would be the best case scenario. And if we do full-day kindergarten, District 90 is going to do it better than anybody in Illinois. But the startup cost, just the construction cost, was $1.5 million, and that was building on top of Lincoln and on top of Willard, which we have already done because of space issues. The new cost would require a whole new footprint, which is much more costly than the numbers that are in that particular review.
I support full-day kindergarten. I think it's a great idea. I think it's an option that we should offer to folks. I would sort of take that in consideration with lots of other initiatives that I think the board is asked to do, and I think that District 90 wants to implement. So I think that, like all good ideas, everything needs to be vetted and prioritized, and we can't do everything at once, and we can't do it all the time. It's not an unlimited budget. So I do think that I do support full-day kindergarten, but I do think that we need to be aware of what does that do to the resources of District 90? What does that do for some of the other things? Sort of the pragmatic, data-driven decision-making is kind of how I would view full-day kindergarten as I would with other initiatives facing the board. So I think it's a good idea. However, I don't think it's free, and I don't think that just because we will it, it can happen. But I'm willing to look and try to come up with creative ways to try to make it work.
As Rich pointed out, this issue does come before the board on a fairly regular basis. And we did evaluate it very carefully 4 years ago, and he's quoted the numbers, so I do not need to do that. As with so many other things, it's a question of what your priorities are. There are many things we would like to do if we could afford to do them. Full-day kindergarten is one, air conditioning the buildings is another. But we have to look as members of the board at what decisions and funds we address can affect the largest number of children. I also feel that River Forest does offer a number of very attractive options for the second half of that day. The community center, the Concordia, Dominican, there are many programs in place which offer a good segue that meets that need. Unquestionably, we could meet it better if it was not so expensive.
Yeah, I sat through some of the meetings in 2015 around full-day kindergarten and learned a whole bunch, and I think it's fantastic when the district opens itself up to community interests and rallies around and listens. I think, you know, if to replay that, if I would go back and I would have a lens that really focused on academics. I think there's a strong equity component to this, and I think there's a strong, I mean, if our mission is instilling a love of learning. You know, as a stay-at-home dad, I volunteered in the kindergarten classroom for a couple of years, actually 2 years, and I saw what it's like for these teachers to try to teach, you know, a full day curriculum in a half a day, and it's very difficult. So I think if we take a lens really from an academic perspective and think about what it takes to instill a love of learning, and also start training up kids as quickly as possible, then I think we can do a great job of really keeping River Forest a destination for education for young families. So I'm in favor of opening the book for full-day kindergarten for sure.
I believe that all-day kindergarten is a when, not if, conversation that we need to be revisiting on a regular basis. My son went to all-day kindergarten, and my 2 girls did half-day here in River Forest, so I've seen both sides of it. And I do think that for many families, kids, and for the teachers, half-day is a logistical challenge. As has already been mentioned, there's a cost and space issue. When LaGrange transitioned to all-day, it was opened up that parents could pay on a sliding scale based on income, which I think would be valuable because all-day kindergarten would really benefit most those who are lower income in our community. I do want to revisit the early childhood screenings. District 90 offers those on a monthly basis, and they're publicized on the website. And given that we are in deficit spending, I'm not sure if spending money to join the early childhood collaboration, which is really a duplicate of services of what we already offer, is the best way. I think it is more about the district better communicating how to gain access to the services we already offer.
Okay, Matt, you're going to start this next question. Given that you will do your utmost to maintain the highest academic standards of the school, how will you also look out for the best interest of the 75% of the residents who do not have children in the school, probably meaning taxes also? How will you also look out for the best interest of the 75% of the residents who do not have children in school?
So obviously, I think we have to be fiscally responsible in anything that we do in the Board of Education. I have run my own business for the last 12 years. I think I have some experience in doing that. With respect to the 75% of the people who do not have children in the schools, there's 2 components to what I think we should be looking at. One is the taxes that we assess. The second is maintaining your property values. For most of us, our homes are our biggest investment. And to maintain property values, we have to make sure that our District 90 schools remain excellent schools. That's why new families come here. That's why I came here. That's why probably everybody on this panel came here. If you want to maintain our property values, and be able to sell your home at some point, you need to have the schools be academically excellent, not just good, excellent.
Well, I had my father-in-law at my table the other day, and he said, "No more taxes." So I'm very keen to make sure that we uphold our fiduciary duties, and we get the best bang for our dollar here in River Forest. And so we haven't had a referendum in 13 years, and we won't have one in the next 4 and hopefully 14 years. We've done that while we've improved facilities. If you look at Willard, the addition that was costly yet necessary was within our budget. If you look at the addition at Lincoln, that was built in order to facilitate more student services and STEM education. We did that without raising taxes. And so we have been very tight with our wallet, but we've also made sure that we spent where we needed to. For instance, on this Easter Seals comprehensive evaluation for our autistic students.
Can I just briefly rephrase the question to make sure I understand?
Sure. Given that you do your utmost to maintain the highest academic standards in the school, how will you also look out for the best interests of 75% of the residents who do not have children in the school? I would equate that to the taxes that they pay to support the children in the school.
No one likes to pay taxes. I think that's a fact, right? But I do think people know when money's well spent. I think if people can understand, here's the dollars that we spent, here's the benefit that we got for it, I think people would sort of realize that, hey, that's money well spent. And we should do more to understand where is our dollars making the biggest impact so that we can make the dollars we have go further and have a bigger impact. And I think it's not just about maintaining, but I think we can actually use what we currently have to perhaps get better return on our investments, investments in terms of facilities, our teachers, our support services. And I think when folks in the neighborhood see how the community is benefiting from having such a strong public school, I think people will understand that you have to pay for that kind of access to resources and for that level of public education.
When I ran for my first term, it was obvious from conversation in the community that we needed to create a way for our taxing bodies to work together more effectively to serve the whole community. And I have been involved in the last 4 years with the subcommittee, River Forest Subcommittee on Collaboration. I helped push that along. It brings together representatives from each of our taxing bodies, the Park District, District 200, District 90, the Village Board, the library, and the township, to discuss issues of common interest to the larger community. And we have just rolled out our first product from all of those conversations. We offered a community-wide survey across all of our different constituencies to find out what people were interested in, and it was communication. And we have available, and I'm going to give it a plug tonight, rfhappenings.com, which is a community calendar, which is customizable by the user to open up events at all of the different taxing bodies for use by the whole community, and I hope everyone will use it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing that we can do for the 75% of the population who doesn't have children here are keep our schools strong. Right now, we're going through tremendous changes, and these changes are going to require diverse thinking. They're going to require people with expertise in complex problem solving. It's navigating these changes that are going to keep our district really strong. That's the number one thing we can do, keep those house prices propped up high. I think another thing that we can do in this current cycle is produce a board that's more diverse, diversity of thought. I think representation for that community, that 75% of the community on the board is important so that they see that the school board, which has a role to reflect the community's will, it's represented there. So I think it's great that Barb's on the board.
We all want our schools to be great when our kids are young, so they get an excellent education, but we also want our schools to be great when they're grown, so that we get a return on investment when we sell our houses. And I believe strongly that the work that is being done now in the district will be what keeps our schools highly successful and allow for high academic achievement, which will keep River Forest a destination community. I also feel strongly with continued fiscal responsibility of being efficient with the services that are provided. District 90 has offered a user-friendly budget that's on the website so that people can go and see how the money's being spent, and there's information there for people who want more detail about it.
We had our interview with the Wednesday Journal guy last week, and he asked us, is anyone going to raise taxes? Really? That was a question. No one's going to say that. I actually don't think that we need to. We are in the top 5th of spending of all elementary school districts in Illinois. We are a very well-funded school district. We spend more than Oak Park does. We spend almost twice as much as our friends over in Maywood do. We don't spend as much as Forest Park, but we have enough money. It's what my friends over there said. It's making sure that our expenditures are linked to student outcomes. Are they the right things to spend money on? I also think the district needs to look at more creative solutions that are what Matt said, revenue neutral. So whatever cost the district is spending, you can recoup them. This is lunch. I can't believe we don't serve lunch. There's lots of companies that will bring in lunch. Parents can pay for it if they want it. The district can build in any administrative costs. There's things that the district can do that isn't going to cost additional money, and for the users who want it, they can take advantage of it. So I would propose to look at more creative solutions to those types of issues.
Rich will start this next question. What steps would you take to ensure children in our schools are safe, specifically undocumented students, transgender students, or gay students?
Okay, and so as an administrator for over 10 years, I was part of the emergency planning committee and team. And so in a high school with over 3,500 kids, emergency plans are, when it goes down, it goes down. And so you have to know what you're doing to prepare for those emergencies. Here in River Forest, our emergency and safety plans start with our awesome relationship with our village, our police, and our fire, and we are in constant communication with them. Specifically, if you're talking about the safety of students who are experience school a little differently, they have a higher level of anxiety, and so do all of our kids here in District 90 and across the nation. We are definitely seeing a rise in anxiety, which is directly correlated with the use of social media. And so what we have done in District 90 has been very proactive around our social and emotional Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 interventions, along with our equity committee, our gender inclusion committee, and our inclusiveness advisory board. And so there's a whole bunch to say about that.
We should embrace differences, and we should be inclusive of folks and make sure that they feel safe, comfortable in a learning environment. That's how folks are going to do well. And I think that to do that, and I appreciate sort of the initiatives that are sort of just getting started to help address this real concern, because I do believe it's real. I do believe that there are lots of resources out there, not just in schools, that have sort of tried lots of different ideas already, and that we should look to those sort of implementations to try to understand what makes for good inclusion programs. How do these kids or people feel included and make sure that they are given the same opportunities? So I do think there's opportunity. I do think that the work that started is a good start, but I do think that there's a lot more work ahead of us in this topic.
There were essentially two parts to that question. I would like to briefly say that it was my honor to go to the Illinois Association of School Boards convention in November and cast the unanimous vote of our board against arming teachers to keep guns out of our schools. This is something that I know our communities have been concerned about. I think the second part of the question dealt with gender equity, transgender children, and LGBTQ kids. And Rich and I are on the newly founded, it's new this year, the Gender Inclusiveness Committee for the school, which was formed on the same model as the Inclusiveness Advisory Board, I believe. And it includes community members and two board members and members of the administration to discuss and form policy. We have completed our policy, and we are looking at our administrative policies with regard to gender inclusiveness issues to make sure that we do the best work we possibly can.
Yeah, to talk about safety first, I think safety is the highest priority. I know our district considers the safety of children in the school as their highest priority. This is passionate to me. Over the last couple of years, I had an opportunity to work with the district and work with the village, who provides tremendous support for safety, to reevaluate safer routes, really look at crossing guards at perimeter intersections. There was good discussion, there was good debate, and good cooperation there, and there's a great plan which the village implemented. From a sense of belonging perspective, I have this idea. I like what the district's doing. There's advisory in the middle school that is small group. Its connection is tighter relationships. It's closer friends. There's also second step in the elementary. I have this idea, and I've been researching full-blown character development curricula. This is something that is laid across, kindergarten through 8th grade, and it's how you go to school. It's how the teachers talk to the children. It's what's expected of the children working together in a classroom. It's not just a worksheet. It's not just a segment of time, but it's woven throughout the entire school experience. And I think this has a really favorable a really great opportunity to create a stronger sense of belonging. And the world wants not just bright people, but they want good people. And I think I'd like to explore fully the opportunity to implement a character curriculum on top of everything else.
Can you read the question one more time? I'm sorry.
Yes. What steps would you take to ensure children in our schools are safe, specifically undocumented students, transgender students, or gay students?
Okay, so this really, to me, seems like a question about creating a welcoming and safe environment. And I think that starts with continued professional development for our teachers. I think all of them actually received training from Lori's last year on how to best support LGBTQ kids in the classroom. I think that there should be training related to the varied types of families that we have in the district, including the potential for undocumented students, undocumented parents, or undocumented caregivers. I also think it's really important that kids see themselves in the curriculum and in our school libraries. That is something that helps someone feel a little bit better about themselves when they might feel alone. And it also increases empathy in the other kids in the classroom and recognizing. I just think about the books that I read when I was younger about kids that were different than me and how much I learned from that and how much I learned about myself in reading books. I also think that the move towards project-based learning will actually support this as well. Kids working together, respecting different perspectives, seeing what different people bring to the table, I believe will work towards creating a more welcoming and safe environment.
I heard a story about a little girl at the middle school who had a substitute teacher who looked at her and said, "You speak English." I think there's still a lot of implicit bias that goes on here. I know the district is trying to work on that, but it's really critical. That's the first step to feeling safe and making sure that those families feel like they have the supports at the school, and the school, again, is a safe place for them. I think related to building security, I think that the grown-ups in the building need to know exactly what to do and what's happening, and to the extent that we can prepare the students without scaring them, that's what I would support. And I know that transgender students is a newer thing that is being talked about now for the first time. I think we can all remember back to our schools when we didn't know how to support these students, and I think we do now, and it's really critical that we think about it. I think understanding when to use preferred names versus legal names, making sure that when there's certain things that break down on traditional gender, like for health education, how are we supporting the needs of transgender students and making sure that they're included where they're comfortable. And I think it's just a lot of really having a lot of forethought and planning to make sure that their needs are being taken into account with all of the policies.
So I'm going to focus on the specific categories of children that were brought up in the question for the undocumented, trans and gay kids. I'm also going to include some other categories of vulnerable children that aren't addressed very often in these days when we talk about vulnerable kids, and those are victims of abuse and children with parents with mental health issues. All of these groups of children that we're talking about might be facing fear coming into school, and need a safe environment. To do that, I agree, we need to focus on professional development for our teachers in all of those areas. We need to make sure the kids have access to, know how to get in touch with our social workers, and we need to do a good job in our district of removing any stigma associated with our children reaching out for help. Because for these kids to feel safe, I agree with Katie, they need empathy from their fellow students, and they need a connection. They need to connect with people at the school. That's what we should be working on. Thanks.
Thank you. Huey, you're going to take this next question, and I think this may be the last question before our closing statements. There are a lot of good questions up here, but we do have a kind of a time crunch. If there are more questions that you would like to ask specifically at the end, I would certainly, the candidates will still be here for a few minutes afterwards, so if you would like to ask them questions, I think that would be a great time to do that also. Question is, what kinds of educational equity work have you participated in? And how would you use this knowledge as a school board member? And Huey, you're going to start this off.
So I think providing opportunities for every child to be successful is an important one. I think meeting kids where they're at, and as like I said earlier, I'm a father of twin boys. That makes comparison really easy, but with very different needs. So I use my personal experiences to try to understand, are my kids getting the challenges that you need and the supports that will make them be successful? That's kind of where I'm at right now. Just is the personal experiences that I've seen in my kids and sort of their opportunities that they're given at school. And do I view that as an opportunity for all kids? They're 2 kids. However, their personal experiences, I think I could take those experiences and try to apply that broadly. And the other thing I would do is I would reach out to the community. I would ask the folks in the community, where are our challenges? What are the opportunities for us? And what are the suggestions that people have? Because I think the power of our community is one of the greatest strengths.
It has been a pleasure and an honor to work on all of the equity work that has been done by the board over the past 4 years. It's been pretty well publicized that we have addressed the performance gaps and are working hard to close those. But I think equity can be looked at through so many different lenses, and it's always been a part of the larger vision of the district to meet each child where they are and to provide the best possible educational experiences we can offer them. And this applies to our top achievers, to those who struggle more, to gay and transgender children. Equity is everybody. And we've worked a lot on educating our administration, our board, and our teachers on equity issues, and working with the National Equity Project, and we're proud of that work, and we think there will continue to be more work to do. But equity is always it's part of the larger vision of the district, and it is about excellence.
Yeah, equity is, if you define equity as being fair and giving every child a chance to succeed their full potential, if you look around, I think you're going to have a hard time finding anybody who doesn't agree with this is the will of River Forest. I think to do that well, we need to take a deep dive and really understand how we're doing that. People send their kids to school. They want them to be safe. They want them to feel a sense of belonging, but they also want them to achieve their maximum potential. So, I like to ask questions, and I think these questions have, they've resulted in a broader dialogue in the community. I think this is a healthy thing, and I think the district responded really well. But what we have to do is step through these changes in a way that we know it's working, so that we know that the result is an equitable solution. I think the other thing too is communication. So if you think about kids who come in and maybe you're on the bottom end of the curve, they're bringing other things to the table, other challenges to the teachers. In all my interviews with teachers and all my discussions and reading, the thing that's the number one factor in reaching these children is through the teacher. So I think we really have to crank up the support on teachers. We really need to increase requirements for professional development. And I think we'll get there. It's not going to change overnight. We have to look at the whole picture from before school all the way through 8th grade in our district.
As Barb said, equity is meeting each child where they are, providing them what they need. What it is not is dumbing down curriculum, which is something that gets discussed quite a bit. My equity experience is really from my personal experience of raising 3 kids with very different needs. My son has learning disabilities. My 4th grade daughter is a typical River Forest high achiever, and my 2nd grader is a hands-on learner. And they all have very different needs in the classroom. And I support the district's efforts to engage them in different ways and allowing them to show what they know in different ways. My kids are also kids of color, which I think River Forest is a district that is moving in that direction and is now currently 25% kids of color or mixed race. And I think that it's valuable to have a variety of perspectives on the board in that discussion.
I've been on the Inclusiveness Advisory Board for about 3 years, and they're really some of my favorite people that I've met in River Forest. I don't think that it's moving fast enough. I think that group could issue more recommendations, and I'd like to be a part of that. One thing that we did find that we do an inclusiveness survey every 2 years, and more than a quarter of the families found that it was hard to make friends with people outside of their social circle. So I think breaking down these sort of barriers in the community is a really important place to start. But really, equity for me is about really eliminating the opportunity gap. We have a 38 percentage point gap in achievement between kids from low-income families and non-low-income families in math. 38 percentage points. In a district like this, that should not happen. We have enough resources to do that. I know that this board has been committed to equity, but I don't think that universal design for learning and project-based learning, that's great for everyone, but to me, that's not really supporting the students who need it the most. I know if my kid is behind and needs help, I want special help for him, and that's what I'm just not seeing, and that's why I think that this opportunity gap persists, that is resulting in differences in achievement.
So, on educational equity work, I am not an educator. I'm a lawyer. So I have not had a particular opportunity to engage in educational equity work. I don't think that disqualifies me from being on the Board of Education. I don't think we need all educators, and nor do I think it means that I care any less about equity for all of our children. I think every child who goes to a public school should get the best education they can, no matter where their ability level is at. And I think every child who comes to a public school should feel welcome and feel included. And we should do everything to ensure that they feel that way.
So, because of my professional experience and my experience here on the Board of Education, I have been part of the Equity Committee, reports to the board every month and uses data, looks very closely at data. And here in District 90, we're very fortunate as the state goes back and forth between PARC and other standardized tests. We have had the measure of academic progress of students in place for about 10 years. So we have great longitudinal data, and through my experience, I have a lot of skill in analyzing data and monitoring achievement levels. We've brought in Lurie's professional development to our teachers and to our administrators and to our Board of Education. We partnered with the PTO. We brought in the National Equity Project, and when we talk about equity, equity means all. When all kids are doing better, all kids are doing better. We're bringing all of our students from point A to point B, and we are going to make sure that from the fall to the spring, they grow and meet very rigorous national and Illinois standards.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're going to end with our closing, 1-minute closing statements. Again, after these statements, if there's any other questions that you have of the candidates, you certainly can catch them in the back of the auditorium there. No, Barb starts first.
Once again, thank you to the League and to the Civic Association for giving us this forum to come and speak to you tonight. It's an important part of being a candidate, and I know we all appreciate that opportunity. I bring a deep level of commitment and a long-term perspective to the work that I do on the board. I think I've learned a lot in my first term and would love to have a chance to serve again in what I feel is one of the most important jobs of the community, in which I feel the entire community is invested. The schools belong to everyone. And I want to be the voice for the larger community. I think that the larger community, it's been my experience that it is an extremely generous and supportive community in which to raise children. And it's a wonderful place to work for the schools. I would like to offer a favorite quotation as my parting comment here from someone named Lillian Katz, and it explains why I am in this race. Each of us must come to care about everyone else's children. We must recognize that the welfare of our children and grandchildren is intimately linked to the welfare of all other people's children. After all, when one of our children needs life-saving surgery, someone else's child will perform it. If one of our children is threatened or harmed by violence, someone else's child will be responsible for the violent act. The good life for our own children can be secured only if a good life is also secured for all other people's children. Thank you for being here tonight, and I hope that you will support me on April 2nd.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the chance to visit and address the questions. What you see here are a panel of volunteers. So there's a will to serve, there's a heart for kids. Everyone cares deeply about children, and everyone cares deeply about River Forest, of course. But now more than ever, what we really need is a board that's highly qualified, that's historically proven, and that's independent. We need community servants with no agenda except doing exactly what the community wants and needs for itself. I think I am the more highly qualified candidate for the 2-year term. If you look at what's happened over the last several months, I am the person who will stick up for the community. I will engage the community at some cost to some extent. So I want to keep River Forest an education destination. I'm available to hear your ideas, to hear your concerns, and I'd ask for your vote on April 2nd.
I chose to run for the 2-year term to offer an alternative and give voters a choice. Steve has brought up many things to the community, and I've answered many of those questions because I've been attending the meetings and I've been engaged in our schools, and I've understood what is going on and how we got to where we are today. I certainly recognize the need that the district can do a better job communicating, but I think that I've shown myself as very qualified given the basic knowledge I have. I've been endorsed by both the Wednesday Journal and the D90 Community Caucus. Many of the current and past PTO presidents and parents who are active in our schools are supporting me. Many current and past board members are supporting me. I value respectful discourse. I agree that many of the things that are going on in I agree with many of the things that are going on in District 90, but I have also spoken up when I think we can be better. In a way that respects our teachers, administrators, and board members. When I have seen need for improvement, I have asked questions and offered suggestions. I have raised concerns about the need to include kids with disabilities as part of the equity conversation, the need for modernized communication between the district and our community, the need to address anxiety and depression in the middle school as well as the school culture, and the need to bring the inclusive preschool here. When we first moved here, that was not an option for kids. I have the experience needed to do the job well. I offer a valuable new perspective. I'm willing to ask questions and, equally important, listen to the answers and look for solutions. River Forest has great schools and is a community that people want to move to and raise their families. I am committed to keeping it that way through well-researched positive changes. I hope you will vote for me on April 2nd.
When I first started going to board meetings was in 2014 when I figured out this whole full-day kindergarten, that they only offered half-day, so I went, and I remember in a meeting where the current board chair talked about what a like-minded collegial group the board was, And you actually see that because most of the votes are 7-0. And I don't think that's good for the community. I think the world is very complicated now, and our community, it has more perspectives and have more just difference. Families look a lot different now than they used to. And I think that having some diversity of opinion on the board is really critical. I think I can really bring a lot to that. I work in education, and I think about these issues all the time. I think about how do you balance academics with kids' social skills and skills building? How do you use technology wisely? How do you teach them to be savvy consumers? How do you teach them not to bully? All these things are things I think about all the time, and I work with schools that are sometimes on the forefront of these best practices. And I think I can bring that, and I think that having some new voices would be really valuable to the community. Thanks for listening.
So there are a lot of topics that unfortunately we didn't get to tonight, obviously with 8 people and only an hour to cover. I guess the one thing I'd like people to know about me as they walk out of here is I have a strong focus on the D90 teachers. I think they are our best resource, and I think that as the board should spend more time talking to those teachers. If I were elected, I would pledge, I would meet with the teachers routinely, visit their classrooms, and talk with them, especially in cohorts, to find out what they needed. What does the math department need? What do they really need? What does the foreign language department need? What do they want? Those are the kinds of things that I'd like to do. I'd like to see the board spend more time doing. And right now, they're not. They think that they need to stay in their lane, and I believe that there should be more collaboration between the board and the teachers. Thanks.
Thank you for your support and continuing to make District 90 the best school district in Illinois. Thank you for coming out tonight. I know many of you walked out the door and your kids are at home, and you're here because this is super important to you as it is to me and my family. And so it's the best school district in Illinois. Don't take my word. Our regional office of education, West 40, just recently informed us that District 90 is 100% meeting the state standards for optimal management and oversight, and received perfect scores in all categories by this regional office of education. In the past 4 years, we've made many improvements and will continue to find innovative strategies that work for our kids. We will especially improve curriculum and instruction and assessment. We are seeing a rise in anxiety among our children, and we are proactive in our efforts to improve social and emotional learning in our schools. I love the collaboration we have with the library. It's screen break, so this week you should go to your library and look for strategies to get your kids off of screens, as we have, and as I know we all have tried to do. And so thank you for your support as we work to inspire a love of learning and ensure educational excellence for all of our children.
I'm a graduate of public education. I believe in the power of public education, and I want to contribute to make sure that District 90 is the best public education that's available. I think my experience in technology will give me a unique perspective and opinions and ideas on how we can solve some of these problems about transparency of information, how we can solve some of these issues related to making sure that people have forums available to them to engage with the board on the topics that are relevant to them. And finally, I realized I don't know a lot of things. And as a result, I'm looking at the strength of our community for ideas and solutions. I'm just trying to provide a platform so that those ideas can be heard. So, if anything, just please vote on April 2nd.
Well said. I'd like to thank the candidates for stepping forward. This is volunteer work that you take a lot of the community, especially communities that are as engaged as River Forest and Oak Park are. It is truly a labor of love when you do this. So thank you for stepping forward to be candidates. Thank you for coming out. This shows a lot of interest in your community, and we appreciate that. The open voting has started and will continue to April 1st. I think the closest voting place is probably in Oak Park as a regional place to vote. and Election Day is April 2nd. So please remember to vote. Thank you very much.